4.6, graphs of tangent, cotangent, secant, cosecant. We're going to start with the tangent of x. And so the first thing we got to know is that the period length is just 1 pi, okay? And it goes from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. And at negative pi over 2 and pi over 2, the reason why the period length is that is because the tangent of pi over 2 is undefined, and the tangent of negative pi over 2 is also undefined. And so there's pi, there's negative pi over 2. There's going to be an asymptote at negative pi over 2, and another asymptote at pi over 2. So those are two consecutive asymptotes. So one period is in between those two asymptotes. And so some points I might want to use: if x is 0, the tangent is 1. If x is pi over 4, if x is 0, the tangent is 0, my mistake. If the tangent is pi over 4, the tangent of pi over 4 is 1, and the tangent of negative pi over 4 is negative 1. So 0, 0, pi over 4, 1, negative pi over 4, negative 1. And so the one period of the tangent graph looks like that. To sketch a second period, all I do is add pi to pi over 2, and that gives me 3 pi over 2, and that gives me the next asymptote. The middle point between pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2 is going to be 0, and the graph is going to repeat just like this. And there's the basic graph of the tangent. Okay. For example number 1, it wants us to graph y equals the tangent of x over 2. So the changes that we have are pretty simple. The first step when you're graphing a tangent is to find consecutive asymptotes. To do this, I'm going to take whatever's with the x. This time it's x over 2. And I'm going to set that equal to pi over 2, because that was the asymptote here on this side. And I'm also going to set that equal to negative pi over 2, because that's the asymptote there. Multiply both sides by 2, and I get x equals pi. And so x equals negative pi. So for this graph, my two consecutive asymptotes are going to be at pi and negative pi. So halfway pi over 2, fourth of the way, negative pi over 2. And just like up here before, the next thing to do is halfway in between the two asymptotes, pi and negative pi, there's going to be the 0. And since this is a positive tangent, halfway between the 0 and the pi, or the first asymptote, it's going to be 1. Halfway between negative pi and 0 is going to be the negative 1, and the graph is going to go up like that. Okay. Probably more along the lines of this. Now, a lot of the problems in our book ask for two consecutive asymptotes, so the period on this one became 2 pi, and so I have to go out here to 3 pi and make that 2 pi asymptote with 3 pi, and the period is going to look just like that. And this keeps repeating every 2 pi units there, for example 1. Okay? I want you to go ahead and try one on your own. I want you to try number 9. Number 9 says y equals 1/2 the tangent of x. Okay, so the first thing I would do after you've tried it out, set up your little grid. Notice there is nothing here that is changing the width of the width of the period. So it's going to be at negative pi over 2 and at pi over 2, the normal period. There's nothing there changes it. Remember, numbers out front just change the scale. So 0, 0 stays intact, but at 1/4 pi, instead of going to 1, it's going to go to 1/2. And at negative 1/4 pi, instead of going to 1, it's going to go to negative 1/2. And it's going to go like that. It asks for a second period, so from pi over 2, add pi again, I get 3 pi over 2. Another asymptote there, 0. Halfway is going to be a half, halfway here is going to be negative 1/2. And there is the second period of number 9.